To a large extent, the message of angels is simply a message of presence, of the presence and existence of something way beyond ourselves. You know, like William James talks about in terms of his mystical theology, that there is something much larger than ourselves. I don't think the message is always terribly clear in terms of adding it all up, because the language is not our language. It's not a rational language. The visions is about all we get. It's like in a dream in some ways. What we get is a vision, is a picture of a reality bigger than ourselves. The translation of what that picture means, how it means, is so individual that to say what the message is would probably be deceptive. People are becoming less and less afraid of sharing intersections that they've had. A hand that's touched them on their back, healed a wound. Someone who appears to help you in time of trouble and disappears, even on the highway out in the clear sight of day, each of which speaks out to a real experience of spiritual reality in the lives of people.
How do angels differ from the other inhabitants of the spiritual world?
There's a little bit of confusion regarding the nature of spiritual forms and the relationship one with the other. I think angels are very special. I think they have something different to say. I think their source is different than a lot of other spiritual forms. In this society today, and I don't hear much talk about it really, or enough talk about it, is how they differ from other spiritual entities. For example, how does the image or idea of an angel differ from, both in terms of its source and its reality, from something like a ghost, as a good example. Of course, you could always use an example of a nymph. How do they differ from those? Are angels the same things only in a negative way as evil demons or whatever? And yes, there are a variety of different kinds of spiritual entities, and angels are markedly different than them. For example, just to use a ghost as a really good example, as a matter of fact, a ghost is pretty much an emanation from the flow of reality that undergirds people and things. It is something that has flowed back on itself and exists, feeds off of, feeds back to tangible reality that it emanated from. It retains a certain aspect of its original form, and it revisits to the extent that it has a need to participate. So its emanation is markedly different than the emanation of an angel. An angel really comes off of God as an emanation from the source of spiritual reality. It really is an extension of God as opposed to a messenger so much, but it's a direct extension of the sense of God. It's more like a glow as opposed to other spiritual forms which are a part of the flow of reality. Then you have the glow of love, which is about God. So to me, the discussion of angels has not yet explored in depth, or as well as it might, how angels really differ from these different spiritual entities and what the relationship is between and among them and how that can help us.
One way of thinking about angels was that they constituted a world unto themselves and were part of the celestial heaven of spiritual figures. It was Dionysius, a 5th or 6th century writer, whose real identity may never be known, who gives us the hierarchical order of the angels. The first group is the seraphim, cherubim, and thrones. The seraphim are symbolized by fire. The cherubim are represented as small winged heads.
The name cherubim denotes their power of knowing and beholding God, their receptivity to the Most High gift of light, their contemplation of the beauty of the divinity in its first manifestation. They are filled by participation in divine wisdom and bounteously outpour to those below them from their own fountain of wisdom. Dionysius.
Thrones have been depicted wearing stoles and kneeling before God. The second group is composed of dominations, virtues, and powers. Each group is associated with specific symbols. The dominations held scepters and wore crowns. The virtues are shown with flasks of perfume, trumpets, and rays of lightning. The powers are depicted wielding flaming swords. The third group includes the principalities, protectors of nations, the archangels, and the angels who protect humans.
In perpetual purity, they encompass his eternal knowledge in that most sublime and eternal angelic dance. wrapped in the bliss of manifold blessed contemplations, and irradiated with pure and primal splendors. Dionysius.
It seems that the classical teaching about the hierarchy of the archangels in particular manifests itself here on the planet with ordinary human beings. Of the four, Raphael is the healing angel, and it is aspects of Raphael that work with healers. I hear people that do body work in particular, as well as many nurses and some physicians, talk about the angels directing their hands or telling them what to do. I see them in hospitals, the big healing angels that come to do specific kind of healing work. If someone's very sick, you can ask one of those angels to come and work with you.
And now the Lord hath sent me to heal thee, for I am the angel Raphael, one of the seven who stand before the Lord. Book of Tobias.
Gabriel, the angel of the Annunciation, so well loved in art, comes in the form of communicating to people. We see that kind of angel in churches or whenever people are in prayer. Sometimes they will come for the ceremonies, the weddings and the baptisms and those kinds of things. They're the ones I think that people talk about coming to give them information. I suppose if they can take our prayers to heaven, they can bring information back to us. The death angel, Uriel, who is also thought to be the angel of transformation, is the one that I see at the beds of dying people or waiting for people to make up their mind if they're going to live or die. There's another aspect of that one that can be called if a person has died but doesn't know they're dead, hauntings, things like that. And that one is called the gatekeeper, and it will come and tell the soul that it is in fact dead and take it. That's a little different from the one that helps the soul to leave the body. This is the one that takes the soul where it ought to go.
We have crossed to the farthest bank of this darkness. Radiant dawn spreads her webs. Smiling like a lover who wishes to win his way, she shines forth and with her lovely face awakens us to happiness. The Rig Veda.
Then Michael, of course, Michael is the defender angel, and the guardian angels are all aspects and forms of Michael. Personal guardian angels, as well as those that help armies and protect nations. They say that Earth has an angel too. I think we need it now.
In the Middle Ages, it was believed that the angelic mind had a greater power of understanding than any human could hope to attain. St. Thomas Aquinas, the great scholar and theologian, said angels could communicate with one another by opening their minds and revealing what was there.
They need neither tongue nor ears, but without the help of any spoken word, they exchange with each other their thoughts and their counsels.
For him, each angel was a distinct species, different from every other immortal being. Medieval thought was that angels were a distinct being endowed with intelligence and free will, which humans could never hope to attain.
Angels, as they appear, as they show up or are felt, are inherently individual. They inherently affect an individual. That's not to say there aren't angels of countries, angels of cities, that it is about an amalgam of energies that are affected by this angelic spirit. But I think the way we generally feel and experience angels is specific and individual. Because it's not so much meaningful as loving, a lot of times we think of, what does it mean that I was pushed out of the way of the bus? And it's really less meaningful than it is real, that you were pushed away from the bus. Where do you take that? So the action of the angel is this precipitous moment of connection. The reality of the effect of the angel's work is what happens to the person as they're inspired, loved that way. Where do they take it?
I am at the beginning of teaching about this. And so what I can do now is tell my experiences, talk about what I know and how I've I've learned to be more open, explain how it is that I now hear an inner voice and I didn't used to. Talk about how I now feel things in my body, tingling in my arms, for example, when someone says something profoundly spiritually important, or even when I just make profound contact. So I understand that this is helping me be a better physician, and I'm hoping then to teach this way of being open to physicians, young physicians. I'm finding as we increase our ability to hear what our patients really want from us, especially patients from other cultures, as we really listen to what they want us to be, that then the conversation becomes about spiritual issues and alternative healing.
I've had experiences that feel like another time, another place. I like Jung's idea of the collective unconscious that we can dip into. I had a startling experience of that in an Indian medicine lodge. I was attending a ceremony, and as the place went into total darkness and the drums began and the chanting got louder and louder, and the spirits came in the form of little sparks of light, almost like fireflies, I knew I had been there before. It felt like ladling into a very deep well and coming up with an experience. Spiritual reflection is a big piece of what I do, and that is helping people to articulate what their spirituality is and to live it in a meaningful and authentic way. More recently, I am finding that people are in need of some form of the sacred. 15 years ago, I didn't see that as much. We are ritualized critters. We need it. It's part of our humanity. And people will be driven to find it in one way or another. And for some people, it's a very negative form, or it becomes negative for them. Ritual is meant to alter our consciousness and to open us to the sacred. It's powerful stuff, and it speaks of the human condition.
Firstly, I do believe in angels. Secondly, I'm one of the original left-brain skeptics, although I'm trying to live live my life more in line with my own inner reality and intuition. So when I hear talk about angelic experiences, I have a couple of reactions. Firstly, I'm in awe of it because I believe what people tell me. I believe what they say they have experienced. And I want to validate that experience for people. And then there's another little part of me that says, no, there must be some other explanation for this. There has to be some intellectual explanation, some scientific explanation for this. So I listen to stories of angelic experience with these two ears. And certainly as a minister, I certainly believe in forms of higher life, higher level of awareness. The inner spiritual reality of a person comes through in our communication with each other, and that can be from the angels and higher levels of life. I think we encounter them in our day-to-day life when we have experiences that take us to some other level of our own spirituality some other level of awareness, it seems to me it's because of the spiritual contact that we have made with someone else at a deeper level than the physical body.
In the 1600s, the angel entered the world of literature and art, which provided a vast array of images and writings on these spiritual beings, making them more accessible to the laity than the church doctrines had. Milton's Paradise Lost portrayed a picture of good and evil that even the common man could grasp.
Where the bright seraphim in burning row their loud, uplifted angel trumpets blow, and the cherubic host in thousand choirs touch their immortal harps of golden wires with those just spirits that wear victorious palms, hymn devout and holy psalms, singing everlastingly. John Milton.
In America, near the end of the 17th century, in the newly established colonies, Increase Mather, president of Harvard College, published 6 sermons on the subject of angels, the subtitle of which was Fears of God. Generally, Mather said, there is no need now for angels to appear to man, because the scriptures have now been perfected. He warned his readers against the demons who may appear as angels. Thus, in Puritan New England, the angelic tradition fell away.
Most of our major religious traditions are replete with angel stories, with miraculous occurrences, with the real tangible intersection of God's energy in the world as it actually shows up and acts on people. And if you discard or cut out those miraculous intersections of spirituality with us, the literature of our great religions becomes far less rich. In fact, to some of us, it probably becomes inconsequential because it's all about that.
During the 18th century, the influence of angels was still in the wane. The angels held their place in the liturgy of the church, but with the steady advance of scientific thought, they were seen mainly as images of the past. We cannot forget, however, that the great mystical poet and painter William Blake and the Swedish scientist and mystic Emanuel Swedenborg lived at this time. Both men approached the spiritual world from an inner point of view. Swedenborg said he was in close contact with the angels.
In his mid to late 50s, he had a couple of significant spiritual experiences which altered the course of the rest of his life. After these experiences, he devoted his entire energy to spiritual writing and explanation of the spiritual world, the purpose of life, and the usual theological questions, life after death, and so on.
In his book, Heaven and Hell, Swedenborg describes some of his ideas about the different levels of angels and their roles as educators and guides.
There are 3 degrees of angels, 3 levels of angels. The natural level, and they are the angels closest to us. They are the ones who probably most closely resemble our psycho-spiritual state. The next level after that are the spiritual angels, and their involvement is very much in working and communicating, living in community with their neighbor. It's the concept of love of neighbor, where the spiritual angels work. They are involved in our ongoing regeneration. And then the highest form of angels are described by Swedenborg as celestial angels or heavenly angels. And they are the angels who are closest to God, if that is your understanding of the source of all of creation, the source of the universe. And they live goodness for the sake of goodness. While in a Swedenborgian system, angels are not a separate creation. Angels are highly evolved humans who have passed on to other levels of spiritual awareness. In our everyday language, we mean they have died and gone on to other things. The purpose of creation is to form a heaven of angels from the human race. After the spiritual experiences which Swedenborg had, he claimed to have lived simultaneously in both the natural and spiritual worlds. Consequently, he conversed daily with angels.
There appeared to me very beautiful rainbows, as on former occasions, but still more beautiful, with the light of the purest white, in the center of which was an obscured earthly something. But that most lucid, snow-white appearance was beautifully varied by another lucidity, and, if I rightly recollect, with flowers of different colors round about. Emanuel Swedenborg.
When a person dies, they are met in an intermediary level called the world of spirits. They are met by angels, and there their education continues, their spiritual process continues. Angels are also the people who raise children who die. People who die as children in the natural world pass on into the spiritual world, and they are raised by angels. Angelhood, if you want to call it that, is definitely a process, and we need to go through this process. We need to be adults, we need to be mature beings before becoming angels. So babies and infants and children who die have not reached the intellectual maturity for angelhood, so they are educated by angels in the spiritual world. Swedenborg suggests 3 places after physical life. There is heaven and hell, and there's the world of spirits. And when a person dies, they enter the world of spirits. That is similar to the phenomenon that many people have talked about when they have had a clinical death situation through trauma or accident. They talk about going through some kind of tunnel and meeting beings at the end of this tunnel. Of course, the people who have the near-death experience, they have come back to tell us about it. But angels can be some of the people they meet when they go through this tunnel. They sometimes meet family. Some people describe a being of light that they meet. Some people have described this as Jesus. Some people have described it as angels. Raymond Moody suggests that our perception of that is very much influenced by our religious beliefs.
If the doors of perception were cleansed, everything would be seen as it is, infinite. William Blake.
Blake's idea of angels differed somewhat from Swedenborg's, but he was strongly influenced by him. Blake diverged from Swedenborg's conception of angels as a status attainable by humans. Blake believed angels were a separate order of creation. He attributed his visions to the manifestations of his inner world. For Blake, the angel was a symbol of the world of the spirit. In the 19th century, the scientific principles being discovered were causing a fervor in religious thinking. As our knowledge of our material world increased, the spiritual realm was pushed farther away. The idea of the angel was becoming more detached from its religious background. Angels became more romanticized, more secular. The word angelic applied to women, and an angel was seen as epitomizing womanly grace. The two most widely read poets of the age were Tennyson and Browning. Both writers made numerous references to angels. Angels were becoming figures of fantasy and imagination. In his poem, Pauline, Browning claims the angel as his muse. And of my powers, one springs up to save, from utter death a soul with such desire, confined to clay, of powers the only one that marks me, an imagination which has been a very angel, coming not in fitful visions, but beside me ever, and never failing me. The idea of angels resurfaced in the early 20th century, even as the complexity of the world increased. There seemed to be almost a preoccupation with the angel symbol.
I think people, because of Jung, and because of Einstein and the scientists and psychologists that followed, people are beginning to realize that the texture of life is far more rich than we had imagined. And I think that our own consciousness is raising. You might want to talk about the human consciousness is actually evolving to a point where, setting some of those earlier prejudices aside, we're starting to realize that it's okay. It's more politically correct, maybe that'd be a way of putting it, to embrace the idea that you can actually communicate with something beyond yourself.
An amazing number of books with the word angel in the title were published between 1890 and 1925. And in the past few years, we have seen a resurgence of this phenomenon.
I think people are very much more open to this kind of experience than they were even 5 or 10 years ago. And I find it interesting that the major media are being used to bring these kinds of messages to us. I keep thinking that if Jesus were walking the face of earth today, I don't know if he would be walking around with 12 guys out in the desert or in the Middle East. Or if he was, one of them would be a media consultant. There's now a thirst for spiritual things, and we're seeing some of the old things that we might have discarded in a new light, and it's holding new meaning for us. The same truths have always been there, but we're seeing them with new eyes now. Maybe we've changed.
I think it's the tip of the iceberg. You think about, for example, angels were big, people were seeing them for some period of time, and then there became this absence due to probably a variety of reasons, including the science, that it was unpopular to think of or see this stuff. And then today it's come around. I don't think of it as cyclic, though. I think that given an association between the appearance and our cognizance of spiritual entities in life, there's no reason to believe that it isn't the next step in the consciousness of human beings to regularly be in tune with these entities. And I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. I think it really does have to do with our minds, and more than our minds, our whole capacity as human beings to see bigger reality. And I don't think it's going to go away. I think it's only going to get more interesting for us.
What does the reawakening of our interest today in angels signify? Psychologist Carl Jung says that the angel personifies the coming into consciousness of something new, arising from the deep unconscious. Jung opened the door to looking at the angel as a symbol of our recognition of our inner world. What does the angel archetype mean to us today?
We resonate so vehemently to the wing, to the concept of wing. Kazantzakis' quote, "Life on earth means the sprouting of wings." And that's where we, as human beings, come from. So when we feel the Spirit flow into us, and we start seeing it actually appear before our eyes, the fact that it would relate to our highest aspirations and come to us in that fashion is, I think, no surprise. I think it'd be surprising in a way if it came in any other form.
What is emerging from deep within our psyches?
At least to the extent that we perceive the energy of God, the loving aspect of God tends to come to us in forms that we have historically referred to in most cultures as some sort of angelic spirit. The sense of that which is precipitated by God, that which is provoked by God, comes to us more in a tangible form. And so, although it's all a part of a whole that evades our thinking, it is helpful sometimes to see how different types of entities come from a different aspect of that whole. Things aren't just one or another. There is a relationship between and among those things. Getting close to God, getting connected with God has to do with balance and unity, a sense of proportion, all the things that art speaks to us non-literally in. And so, again, no surprise that which is bigger than the rational, that which is more awesome and sometimes scary and fearful to us, would be this translated winged figure. You can't deny so much personal experience, be it of flying saucers, be it of spiritual entities of any type, be it Echo Bodine, de-ghosting a house, or whatever it be. And even though among those who respond to this stuff, you will have some that are more or less credible, ultimately, they are all speaking a language that's being heard loud and clear. They're buying the books, they're responding to it, because personally, people realize there's a deep truth in this, and they're responding to it. Pretty hard to deny.
And why at this time in our history?
It's harder these days when traditional religious forms don't hold people in the way they did at one time.
Some say our need to believe in angels is our recognition of the need to look at the world in a more spiritual way.
I hope it's for an increasing appreciation of the spiritual and an increasing capacity for people to be with spirit, to co-create. There's so much work that needs doing that we really need spiritual help in getting it done.
Some would say it's a part of the evolution of our collective soul, leading us to look inside ourselves.
The world is changing.
So spirituality has to evolve along with.
I would think so, yes. Spirituality must change as we change, as the world changes. The basic concepts are the same, but the way we access and live it must change.
As spaceships are racing to the outer limits of the known galaxies, perhaps the angels are whispering to us, inviting us to return home, home to our hearts.
The wise know him who assumes all forms, who is radiant, who is all-knowing, who is the one light that gives light to all. He rises as the sun of 1,000 rays and abides in infinite places. The Upanishads.
I believe that God and God's messengers or angels, spirits, whatever forms God wants to give to things, that they are around us everywhere. And that they are, and that God's self is present.
Look well, for I am a form difficult to discern. I am a new moon. I am an image in the heart. When an image enters your heart and establishes itself, you flee in vain. The image will remain within you, unless it is a vain fancy without substance, sinking and vanishing like a false dawn. But I am like the true dawn. I am the light of your Lord. Rumi.
We are talking about things that we didn't used to talk about. People are open to talking about their spiritual experiences, and that's certainly partly me shifting. It also seems like the whole consciousness is shifting.
The air, the sunlight, the night, all that surrounds me seems crowded with inexpressible powers, with the influence of souls or existences, so that I walk in the midst of immortal things. I myself am a living witness of it. Richard Jeffers.
I've often wondered about the people that see or experience angels, what kind of people they are. I think maybe more introverted people, shyer, quieter people that pay more attention to what goes on inside than outside, see them more often. As a child, I was very shy. I grew up with a family of brothers that were pretty extroverted and busy, and I was left to myself a lot. And I took to wandering around the woods, and I saw things that nobody else saw. I think that's how I began to see angels. When I was a little girl, they would appear in the woods. They would appear under my favorite tree. They would appear in my bedroom. And they never talked to me, but I learned to listen to them with that inner voice.
Make yourself familiar with angels and behold them frequently in spirit, for without being seen, they are present with you. St. Francis de Sales.
A good deal of my prayer life is asking and for the angels to be sent to someone else who might be having difficulties and worries or torments. And I have experienced, when I talk to my friends, that they have experienced some peace. And I know that an intercession definitely is possible if you pray from the heart.
Swiftly arose and spread around me the peace and joy and knowledge that pass all the art and argument of the earth. And I know that the hand of God is the elder hand of my own. And I know that the Spirit of God is the eldest brother of my own. And that all the men ever born are also my brothers, and the women my sisters and lovers. Walt Whitman.
Those of us who are optimists, maybe it's just wishful thinking. I don't think so. View that this is the next step, and the next step is this cosmic sense of cosmic consciousness, this connection with these spiritual realities. So I think it's only going further and further.
Plucked like the strings of a harp, the warp and the woof of the world reverberate with memories of triumphant hymns. The sure foundation upon which I had sought to stand has turned out to be the center from which I seek. The elusive substance beneath all forms of the universe is discovered as the immediate gesture of my hand. Alan Watts.
I had a bad dream that an evil demon was outside my bedroom window and he was knocking on my window trying to get in. And I was really terrified. And I woke up and I was just stiff and I couldn't move, and I couldn't even move. And all of a sudden I felt a presence in the room. I didn't see anything, but it told me that I was gonna be okay. I mean, I didn't hear anything, but I could just feel that it was okay, and that there was nothing there, and that I was safe. And then I went and got in bed with my mom.
O sovereign angel, wide-winged stranger above a forgetful earth, care for me. Care for me. Keep me unaware of danger and not forgetful of my innocent birth. Edmund St. Vincent Millay.